Okay, AOC finally responded proudly concerning a high school yearbook photo that proves she grew up in a wealthy suburb. She said, "See, I told you I went to high school."
And I can tell you, I know that when I was waitressing and struggling to put food on the table, for a while there, I did. I tried to stop caring. I tried to just keep my head down, work my shifts, and accept that this is just how things are. But that is no way to live, Arizona. It's no way to live. What I do know is that we don't have to live like this. And in fact, we cannot live like this anymore.
This is ridiculous.
Kelly didn't just challenge AOC's political performance, she ripped the whole act apart with sharp humor and bold accuracy. She exposed every bit of AOC's dramatic posing, her flashy viral moments, and the theatrical style she's been relying on for years. From TikTok outbursts to dreamy economic claims that never add up, nothing escaped the spotlight. This roast wasn't only fierce, it felt like AOC's carefully shaped image was falling apart right in front of everyone. And for anyone expecting AOC to come back with strong replies, the shock was intense because this takedown left her silent, stunned, and completely exposed to the crowd.
This nonsense from like AOC that he should be impeached is just absurd. Absurd. There's no... Okay, get back to me when you've read the Constitution or get a law degree, because you sound like an... There is absolutely no ground to impeach the president. He 100% was within his constitutional authority and his congressionally authorized authority to do what he did on Saturday.
AOC. What? She's kind of fun in a silly but earnest, wrong but adorable way. She's like your daughter when she comes back from her first year at Brown, full of half-baked, half opinions, in need of some gentle, patient deprogramming. But people have to realize new faces doesn't mean new ideas. Drives me crazy. AOC has never introduced a fresh idea or issue in her life.
Greg Gutfeld didn't even pause before jumping straight into his roast of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Just hearing her name was enough to set off what felt like a giant comedy siren inside his mind, pushing him into full performer mode instantly. He lit up right away, almost like someone handed him a script packed with endless jokes labeled unlimited material, and he was eager to use every line with absolute enthusiasm. To Greg, AOC wasn't just a member of Congress. She looked like a full sketch routine brought to life, a walking stream of punchlines who somehow stepped into political office while forgetting to turn off the imaginary laugh track playing behind her every moment. The more he talked, the more it seemed like he had been waiting for this exact opportunity.
She's like an 80-year-old leftist in a used bookstore. I mean, she may look fresh, but she's as stale as an abandoned futon on the street. It's like, I listened to her, I go, I heard that at Berkeley in 1983. So their problem is, and the reason why they don't have any ideas is they operate on half opinions. Like, what? So by now you heard that AOC, among others, were arrested last night. She truly is an American hero. It was brutal. Taken out in cuffs. Well, technically, her shirt had cuffs. Maybe French cuffs, as she did surrender without fighting.
If you're enjoying this takedown, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. He started things off by pointing out her surprising skill for turning every Instagram live into what looked like a major national broadcast designed just for her cats, her glowing ring lights, and anyone willing to watch the show unfold. Greg joked that AOC could sit in a room full of real experts and somehow walk away carrying a fresh pile of half-understood buzzwords that sounded impressive but never quite connected to anything meaningful. He said her views often felt like leftover ideas reheated from an old college activism rally, warmed just enough to seem political, yet never fully safe to digest without concern. His point was clear. Her dramatic delivery kept grabbing attention, but the shaky substance beneath it always showed through the moment someone looked closely.
As for whether it's a good idea, that's a debate we should be having. And look, if we could get congressional approval of the specific action, fine, I'm okay with that too. If you want to bring it to Congress, go ahead and see how that goes. I don't think it's necessary, but...
Oh, let's do it. What happens? You have repeat criminals wreaking havoc. What if we have sanctuary cities? Hey, let's do it. What happens? Finding sanctuary, safe haven. What if we give trans rights? Oh, you just ruin women's sports. You ruin safe spaces. You make kids' lives hell. But
Greg went after her love for dramatic moments next, saying AOC treated every hallway in Capitol Hill as if it were a glowing spotlight runway, and every small disagreement like the start of a full televised meltdown ready for maximum attention. He joked that she handled actual legislation the same way a reality show contestant handles a chaotic group challenge, loud, confused, and completely convinced she's the heroic center of the story, even when everything around her is crashing down like a kitchen set bursting into flames. His roast painted her as someone always prepared for a dramatic moment, even when the situation didn't need one, turning simple tasks into scenes that looked ready for dramatic music and flashing lights.
There's a beautiful little town called Yorktown Heights in Westchester. It's not the fanciest of Westchester towns, but it ain't the Bronx by any measure. And the reason this is relevant is because a congresswoman who you may know as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been telling us for years that she is from the Bronx. And recently she had a fight with President Trump over tweet, text, truth, whatever. And she played tough and said, "Oh, don't you mess with me. I'm a Bronx girl and we eat Queens boys for breakfast."
Then came the moment when he dug into her policy ideas, and Greg dove in with clear excitement as if he'd been waiting for this part all day. He broke down AOC's biggest proposals, describing them as a strange mix of dreamy fantasy stories blended with economic self-sabotage wrapped tightly together. He laughed about how the Green New Deal read like a rushed seventh-grade science project, the kind made with glitter, poster board, and absolutely no solid numbers to support any of its dramatic claims. Greg compared her way of building policy to assembling IKEA furniture without instructions, only to blame the chair when it collapses in a dramatic crash to the floor. His message landed with force. The theatrics were always strong, but the real details were nowhere to be found, leaving everything looking more like a show than a serious plan.
But if her pants had cuffs, she would have pretended to be in leg irons too. But real handcuffs, not so much. But that didn't stop her from pretending, and I hate it when people do this to me. When I ask people to put on handcuffs and they say, "I'll just pretend I have them on," I'd be like, "Sure, and I'll pretend to pay you after."
Greg tore into her non-stop social media presence, saying AOC spent more time filming videos than a full-time influencer who never takes a single day off, only with the added twist of avoiding actual facts while doing it. He imagined her staff meetings as chaotic scenes filled with filters, catchy slogans, and someone dramatically shouting about carbon emissions while taking selfies inside an SUV, turning the whole situation into something that looked more like a stage production than real political work. Then came the emotional moments, which Greg couldn't resist mocking, describing how AOC turned every vote she disliked into a full Shakespeare-style tragedy, complete with a shaky voice, long pauses, and lighting that looked planned for dramatic flair. According to him, whenever she didn't get her way, it wasn't treated as a simple disagreement. It became a world-ending disaster designed for viral attention. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly stepped onto another platform with calm and sharp precision, offering a quieter but far more devastating approach as she peeled away AOC's public persona layer by layer, like an onion that only grew more tear-inducing as it fell apart.
And respectfully, AOC. Well, that's real cute, except she only lived in the Bronx until she was age 5, when at best you're in usually kindergarten, maybe first grade. And she spent the rest of her childhood, 1 through 12th grade, in Yorktown Heights, which is Westchester. And by any measure, it is richer, nicer, and more white collar than the Bronx, with all due respect to my friends in the Bronx.
Megyn couldn't resist joking about AOC's constant references to her humble beginnings, saying AOC had stretched her former bartender job into the political version of a Marvel-style origin story, acting as if she personally invented struggle and turned it into a heroic title for dramatic effect. She laughed that AOC spoke about her past so intensely that Megyn half expected her next slogan to be, "From cocktails to Congress, a revolution in heels," delivered with a dramatic pose and camera-ready lighting. Switching back to Greg, he wasn't slowing down either, diving into AOC's ongoing battles with the media, especially her long-standing argument with reality itself. He joked that AOC behaved as if being questioned meant she was being attacked, treating every fact-check like a personal insult aimed at her feelings. Greg compared her reactions to a toddler denied candy, loud, indignant, and absolutely convinced she was the victim of something enormous. He mocked how AOC built her brand around being the voice of the people, yet somehow managed to avoid interacting with most actual people, relying instead on Twitter activists, TikTok commentators, and climate protesters glued to sidewalks as her main supporters. He pointed out how strange it was that someone focused on working families spent so much time preparing for glossy magazine photo shoots.
Of course, AOC was mocked on social media for imitating being handcuffed, which is a change from her usually being mocked for imitating a congresswoman. That's not even close to being as disgusting as I can be. She, in fact, was gingerly escorted away to a holding area where she kept up the phony display before finally raising her fist to supporters. She then crossed her wrists behind her back, again in the faux handcuffed position. It's as tall a tale as AOC nearly being killed on January.
Greg claimed that AOC tried to play a modern version of Robin Hood while wearing designer shoes, pulling attention away from real issues as she delivered speeches that sounded like stretched-out tweets sprinkled with fancy wording for extra shine. Meanwhile, Megyn stepped forward again to break down even more of AOC's contradictions, pointing out how AOC constantly preached empowerment while insisting she actually had no power, demanded accountability from others while sidestepping it herself, and talked endlessly about transparency while avoiding interviews that didn't come with carefully screened questions. Megyn argued that AOC mastered switching between revolutionary and victim, choosing whichever role fit the camera angle of the moment. She explained how AOC shrunk complicated political issues into quick viral slogans, treating anyone asking for specifics like they were blocking progress, acting as if capitalism were a villain from a fantasy novel and every economic question was an excuse to blame wealthy people and dodge real math. Megyn highlighted how AOC built movements with no structure, launched bold plans with no logistics, and approached politics like a college club. Lots of posters, tons of energy, and zero follow-through once the excitement faded and the snacks ran out.
And now some of her schoolmates, separate and apart from Benny, are weighing in on her claims. I'll get to the Benny thing in one second, but there was a piece in the New York Post talking about how she's embarrassing herself. She's embarrassing herself now with this Bronx girl.
Gutfeld came charging back in, calling AOC the queen of delayed revelations, joking that she always seemed to remember trauma only when it turned into a trending topic guaranteed to bring attention. He mocked her sudden waves of dramatic flashbacks, each one timed perfectly to match new legislation or major headlines, making the whole thing feel less like memory and more like a planned performance meant for applause. Greg said that if there were an award for Best Political Improv Drama, AOC would win without competition, and proudly thank herself in the spotlight during the acceptance speech. He teased her take on international issues too, saying her entire foreign policy approach felt like a cycle of feeling sad, blaming America, demanding change, and offering absolutely no plan afterward. Greg imagined her trying to solve world crises with inspirational phrases and creative recipes, as if emotion alone could rewrite global conflicts. Then Megyn stepped back in to analyze AOC's shift from fiery activist to establishment favorite, all while acting like nothing had changed at all. She said AOC wanted the credibility of rebellion and the comfort of power at the same time, creating the political version of crashing a party and then loudly complaining about the music she chose herself.
AOC was on 60 Minutes last night. Quite a feat for a newcomer. Must be all her great new ideas.
People are going to have to start paying their fair share in taxes. Once you get to like the tippy tops, on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%.
What an expression. Now, the real story isn't AOC's very old ideas. It's the media's gushy view of her. Even with her old ideas, she gets on 60.
Megyn mocked AOC's endless photo ops, her carefully staged outrage, and the constant cycles of controversy that always seem to end with a dramatic video followed by a fundraising link. She said AOC had turned her position in Congress into an ongoing performance series, with each episode starring her as the misunderstood heroine, boldly fighting against reality itself. Both Gutfeld and Kelly agreed that AOC wasn't some unexpected political force. She was a polished brand, wrapped in the appearance of authenticity, marketed as a revolution, and powered more by Wi-Fi than real accomplishments. They didn't see her as dangerous, but as predictable, like a script that comes with wardrobe changes, a protest sign, and designer boots for dramatic effect. Greg joked that if you gave AOC a whole week to write a bill, she'd return with a spoken word poem and a playlist instead, and he imagined her trying to pass legislation using glitter pens and TikTok clips. According to him, AOC didn't represent the future. She symbolized the moment when politics swiped left on substance. Megyn, always sharp, finished by predicting that AOC's biggest struggle wouldn't be critics, but time itself, because eventually slogans fade, hashtags lose power, and people expect real results.
Let's check in on AOC and see what she has to say.
Any quick reaction on what's going on with Elon Musk and President Trump on Twitter right now?
Oh man, the girls are fighting, aren't they? I think this breakup we've been seeing a long time coming, but we'll see what the impacts are of it legislatively.
Okay. You're so cool referring to them as the girls. She's above it all, Ben. That's what she's trying to telegraph. You see, she's the adult in the room, the one out there who does a preacher accent, and she leans into her fake Latina accent. And like, she's the adult in the...
They both made it clear that the roast wasn't ending anytime soon, because AOC was still on stage performing, still gathering applause from people who hadn't even taken a moment to read the script behind her show, and as long as she kept talking, Gutfeld and Kelly would be right there sharpening their jokes and sipping coffee like they were preparing for the next act of a never-ending play. Greg jumped back in with fresh energy, pointing out that AOC's biggest political achievement so far seemed to be transforming every policy discussion into a full episode of dramatic political theater, complete with props, costumes, and speeches that always ended in cheers from people who didn't fully understand what she said. He joked that AOC could turn something as small as a pothole complaint into a national debate about feelings, inequality, and whether the pavement itself needed to be defended, making even the simplest topic sound like a dramatic crisis worthy of breaking news alerts.